Hi, hello, and welcome to Journey Towards Wealth. Wishing you all a very happy 2023. I know you must be wondering that I've been away from this channel for almost a month. Yes, that is true. And that is exactly what financial independence is for me. It actually lets me take my life on my own terms. It lets me live my life on my own terms without depending on my job or my career for the monthly income that comes in. That way, 2022 was a great year for me. It was in this year that I decided to take a break from my career, my job, and pursue something that interests me, that excites me every day. And believe me, last 6 months was wonderful. And I do not regret even for a minute the decision that I made in 2022. That way, 2022 was a remarkable year for me. And I'm just hoping 2023 would be a beautiful extension of the year that has gone by. Now, being somebody who is very savvy about financials, the first thing that I do is to plan my budget for 2023. Budgeting is very important for us as a family because it is only when you measure something can you improve on it. I personally believe it. And it's only when I budget my money I can find out ways to improve my spending, my savings, my investments, and everything involved with money. Again, budgeting today it looks easy for us because it has evolved over the past 10-12 years to where it is today. But initially, when we started with budgeting, it wasn't as easy as it is today. So, if you're new to budgeting and if you feel fearful, if you feel hesitant to go through the process of budgeting, believe me, if you go through a budgeting, you feel as if you have more control on the money that you're earning, the money that you're saving, and the money that you're investing, and the money that you're spending. So, if you have never tried to budget, please take it this year as an opportunity to budget your money. Now, let's go deeper into our budgeting or how we manage our budget. Let me also tell you that this is not the first time I am budgeting my money or our family is budgeting our money. And for us, we have a set process which has been evolved after lots of trials and errors over the past 10 to 12 years. And today what you see is actually a culmination point of the efforts that we have taken over the years. So if you see the budget, you may find it to be very simple. That happened because of the previous years of hard work that we have put in for our budgeting. So if you're new, maybe initially you will find this process to be tedious. You may not find it very interesting. But once you start seeing the results of a proper budgeting and investments, I'm sure you will love to continue through the process. Now, let's go deeper into this video. So now, this is our budget for 2023. Here, I need to inform you that these numbers that are given here are not the real numbers. These numbers are fictitious numbers and have nothing to do with our reality or our life. We don't find it comfortable to share our actual numbers on a social media platform. At the same time, we know this video would be helpful for many people who are starting with their budgeting and not able to understand how to go about with the budgeting process. So the first item in your budget is your income. It is important that you are aware about your sources of income and also the income that comes in. Many of the incomes would be coming monthly and some of them would be coming yearly or quarterly. So for us, we have a salary which is a main component of our income, followed by stock sale. Stock sale is nothing but the buying and selling of shares that happens. The profit that we get out of is the stock sale. The next is rent. Rental is a rental income. Dividend is a dividend that we get from our investments, whether it is in stocks or mutual funds or whatever. The dividend that we receive from our investments. And interest is the amount that we receive from our fixed deposits or other investments that we have made. These numbers are all after tax or post tax income, and hence you don't see the component of tax here. Once we get our income, the first step that we take is we ensure that we automate our investments and savings. Each month, whenever those income hits our account, we ensure that 40% of that income has been redirected to our investments. Investments are classified as stocks and startup investment. Please read this private equity as startup investments and mutual funds. Stocks are generally in the US and the Indian stock markets, and startups are if we find any interesting ideas in the market, or if there is something new coming up which sees our attention, then we look at it. Mainly startups are a very small percentage of our total investments. Then we allocate 30% of our investment amount to mutual funds. We believe that in the next coming year, which is the year 2023, there is a lot of opportunities that will be coming up in the stock markets, whether it's in India or the US, and hence we have allocated a chunk of our money into stock investments for 2023. We believe 2023 is a year where we need to allocate maximum funds towards stock markets and mutual funds, because we anticipate to get a good return over a period of time with such investments in uncertain times. In today's market, it is volatile, it is unpredictable, but the returns would come over a period of next 3 to 5 years, and we are ready to wait for our investments to mature into a decent income generating opportunity. That is the only reason we have allocated most of our investments in 2023 towards stocks and mutual funds. Then, around 10% of our total income would be allocated as liquid fund, or it will be allocated to some debt fund where it is more or less kind of a savings and it is not treated as investments. And once we invest that for almost a year, what we do is we realize we do not need that amount. Then at the end of the year or towards the fourth quarter, we direct that also towards investment. So once we have allocated sufficient funds for investments and savings, which is about 50% of our total income, then comes the next biggest component, which is our spending or our expenses of 2023. Now, some of the expenses are done monthly and some are quarterly and some are yearly. And we have also bifurcated it based on our needs and wants. So there are some items like travel, which is treated as need, because as a family for us it is a need based spending and not want based spending as it should be, because your budget is very personal to you and it comes in different category based on your individual requirement. Now for us, we do not have too much spending happening in clothings or accessories, or we do not have heavy spending in shopping or splurge expenses or those kind of expenses. Our major chunk of expenses are going towards education, good food, transportation, and also travel, because these are the things which are important to us and we wouldn't mind spending money on it. Another thing you would notice in this budget is you don't see the usual components like a car loan or a housing loan or a life insurance in our spending, simply because we do not like taking loans on a depreciating asset like a car. And every time we have bought a car, it is only by cash and we have not used any loan for buying a depreciating asset like a car. The next is housing. Our housing loan has been cleared and we do not have any kind of payment dues for our housing loans, and hence that component is also missing in our spendings. Now comes the next important question, which is why we do not have term insurance or life insurance in our spending or in our expenses. We believe that life insurance or term insurance is only required till a point where you are dependent on your income for running your house, beyond which it doesn't make sense for you to continue having an expenses called term insurance or life insurance, because you are no more dependent on the income and the loss of income is not going to affect much. In that case, it is better to avoid life insurance or term insurance from your expenses. This is a simple reason why we do not have this component in our spendings. It is not that we never had this. We had it till the point we were confident that we are financially independent and we are not dependent on our primary jobs for our monthly income. Now comes about health insurance. We still have health insurance as a component of our expenses because we need to have this health insurance even after we are retired, and we cannot depend on a company insurance at that point of time. It is best to have health insurance taken early on at a younger age before you are before you have your ailments and other health conditions coming up in later stage of your life. This will ensure that your premiums are minimal and you do not have to overspend on the health aspect of your life. Hence, we have ensured that health insurance is in place from early on, and we have been having this insurance for the past couple of years, which we continue paying even today. So these are the major expenses that we have. If you notice this, you will realize we do not have too much of money for clothing, accessories or shopping, but we have a component called miscellaneous expenses, which is some sudden expense which will come up, which is beyond our expectation, and at that point we do not want to struggle for money and not in a situation to understand from where we will be generating the income. That is the reason we have allocated quite a high percentage towards this particular expense. Once you have your budget in place for the year, then it is important for you to keep tracking your expenses, especially on a monthly basis. This is basically to ensure that you are in track with your budget, and any deviation from your budget can be adjusted in the coming months, so that at the end of the year you have a budget which your actuals and your budget are the same. Many a times, once you start your budgeting, especially in the initial years, it becomes very difficult for you to actually stick on with your budget. But after a point of time, over a couple of years, the budgeting becomes a habit and it becomes easier for you to stick on with your budget. In our case, what happens is once we set the yearly budget, then each month, especially if it is a monthly allocation expenses, we ensure that the budget has been adhered to and there is not much of a deviation from our budgeted amounts. This becomes easy after you continue budgeting for a couple of years. Now the question is, what happens when you have made an annual budget and when you're doing the monthly budgets? In some months, if your actuals exceed your budgeted amount, which is fine, budget can have deviation of around 5 to 10%. It is not necessary that it has to be 100% as you have planned. There may be changes in certain expenses. In such cases, what you can do is you can try to reduce other expenses which are not very important to you. That is where you can fix your budget on a monthly basis. For example, from on a budget, if you have exceeded by around 5% on one of the line items or one of the expenses that you have, what you can try and do is in the next month you can either try to reduce that expense, or you can try and reduce some other expense which may not be very relevant for you. Going by the principle that anything that is measured can only be improved, budgeting is very important for your financial journey. Why? Because it is only when you actually measure your income or you're aware about your income, your expenses and your investment, you have a room for improvement in your budget. If you're not even aware about what your income is and how much money is spent each month, how do we even know that we are in a right track in terms of our financial life? Now, having gone in detail about budgeting, let's understand why is it important that you need to budget. Anything that is measured can only be improved. This is a simple principle on which your budgeting also works. Basically, only if you budget are you aware about your income, your expenses, your investments, your savings, and all the aspects of budgeting. And that is when you start realizing where you have extra money coming in, where you have money being spent unnecessarily. Many a times we assume that it is important that all the money that we spent is for the right purpose, or we are not unnecessarily spending any money. But once you start budgeting, you start noticing where money is spent unnecessarily, and that is where you can start cutting and improving your financial life. Budgeting is an important aspect for a successful financial life, and to that extent many people ignore budgeting because it is a tedious process, especially when you're starting initially. Many a times it becomes very difficult for people to accept the fact that they need to start budgeting. But once budgeting becomes a habit, you can see the difference in your financial life, the improvement in your financial life, and improvement in your dealings with money. I highly recommend all of you to start your budgeting journey to understand where your money is being unnecessarily spent, where you can reduce those expenses and actually detour it to something better or invest in something better for your financial life. Believe me, it becomes very, very difficult initially for you to start budgeting. Having done budgeting for the past 10, 12 years, I believe that was the best thing that we started. That helps us to have a control on our money, the money that comes into our life, and how we are investing that money, and then how we are spending the money. I don't think financial success is nothing other than planning your financial life, and you cannot ignore the role of budgeting in that financial plan. So, believe me, it is an important step in your financial or your personal finance and your household finance. So, please give the importance it deserves in your financial planning. Again, if you find this video is useful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Please drop in your comments in the comment box. That would motivate me to do more of such videos. Thank you all for all your support.